Hi, I'm Amit,
And I'm Ankit.
and you're listening to Living Unbroken podcast,
Join us as we turn tragedy into empowerment.
exploring medicine, spirituality, politics, and all things accessibility. Well, good afternoon, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us onto our podcast. I know you, and we have read a lot about you, and our audience would like to know you, who you are, what do you do, and what's your mission, and where are you from?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Elizabeth Bottorff. I got my PhD in biomedical engineering, and my thesis focused on spinal cord injury and sexual function. So now I'm a postdoc, which is essentially after you get your PhD, you need a little more training. You can kind of think of it as a residency. So I'm getting a little more training, writing grants, but I'm still pursuing this intersection of spinal cord injury and sexual function. So one of my main goals is to develop some more tools, and I'm sure we'll talk about them later on, but they're not really designed for the spinal cord injury population. And because we're using these tools and we're using these outcome assessments, we're not getting good therapies for this because we don't even have the right tools yet. So that's kind of like my passion, bringing some of the other advancements in sexual health back to this community in particular.
So, as a layman, help me understand. So you're officially a doctor because you've got a PhD,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, correct.
So Dr. Elizabeth and Dr.
You can
Yeah, or do
you
you-
call me Dr. Bot.
Okay, Dr. Bott. And so your research, how does someone get into this? Like you've got an illustrious career doing research in neuroscience and then doing some advocacy as well. Did you grow up wanting to be a sexual health researcher, or is this a childhood
Not at all.
dream, or how did you end up where you are today? Tell us about that.
Yeah, of course. So, like many people in the biomedical space, I wanted to be a doctor. I got into undergrad and I was like, wow, this is really hard. Just kidding. I don't want to be a doctor anymore, but I want to work with doctors. So instead of being the person giving care, I would like to be the person making the tools and working with the doctors to create the tools for them. So that led me to biomedical engineering. And what happened was when I was doing research in undergrad, I'm very fortunate the program I was a part of at Pitt really encourages undergrads to get into the lab. And so I joined this neuromodulation lab. And so when I say neuromodulation, I mean applied electrical stimulation. There's a lot of different ways that people do this, and I would think the most commonly known in the spinal cord injury community is spinal cord stimulation. That's been making big waves recently, but it's really just targeted electrical stimulation to the nervous system. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. We know so little about the nervous system still. And so I wanted to be a part of that. And when I was looking at PhD positions, someone they were already doing sexual function and neuromodulation. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Nobody is studying this. I don't really think it takes a genius to get this done, but it takes somebody with like attention to detail and who really cares about the subject matter. And so to me, sexual health is a part of overall well-being, and it's often ignored, even though so much money is poured into it outside of research, right? Think about how much, people say sex sells and right? We have all that money over there, but it's not being done in research at all. So I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that me and my collaborators could really tackle. And so I don't know, it's really easy, an easy field to be in because people are so passionate and it means so much to them. Once you get past, some of the stigma, which for me has never really been too much of a problem, because I like to think I take a very jovial, joking attitude, which is very important for this field. So it's just kind of become a passion project of mine. So are other areas of pelvic health, right? Bowel, bladder, basically all the things people don't really want to talk about, I love talking about.
And so, if you want to explain it to a younger audience, how are you going to explain it to them?
Yeah. So basically how my field kind of came about is this neuromodulation. There's one specific kind. It's called sacral neuromodulation, and people are already using it for bladder dysfunction. So you can kind of think of it as like a pacemaker for the bladder. And they implant it in the body in the same way, except they're targeting the nerves that control bladder function. And it's working, okay? They've been doing it for 20 years, able-bodied people, some people with spinal cord injury. And along the way, they found some off-target benefits, okay? People are reporting, hey, I know you implanted this for my bladder, but guess what? Like my sexual function is really improving. And so researchers gave these surveys just to track their sexual function before and after. They're standardized surveys. Some of them are problematic, but they ask questions like, on a scale of 1 to 5, over the past 6 weeks, how has your sex life been? And so, you can see how it's just like one number before, one number after. It's not a lot of rich detail. It's not objective data, but that is what has kind of led us, okay, there's something here, something that we can tap into to maybe use the same technology and maybe even just optimize it a little differently for sexual function.
So the device you use the one for neurodomicin, is it just for the spinal cord injured patients, or it can be used by the able body? Because I know, like my brother is he has no clue about the spinal cord injury. He just know me about as a spinal cord injury. But if we have to explain it to him, can he use the devices, or like how do you come out with that number of what is your level of sex?
Yeah, so like you would have to get approved for a different bladder dysfunction. So like that's kind of a very big challenge, is like you can discover this and it can work in the lab, but you still have to get it approved by regulatory agencies. You need to get insurance to cover it, because especially for the implantable devices, there are non-invasive options, but for the implantable devices, it's a very expensive surgical procedure. Insurance has to cover it. And in America, that's a very big challenge sometimes. And I'm sure in other countries as well.
So there's a lot of people making content on sex, but no one is talking about sex.
Not the way I talk about sex. Yes, I'm sure you've noticed a lot of I want to call it femtech, which is very important. Very glad it's here. But a lot of it can be a little, it can lack evidence-based research. And so you have these people out here kind of saying, try this oil, try that, but none of it is backed by research. None of it is peer-reviewed. And so that is a big kind of misinformation. I mean, sometimes the information is good and solid, and sometimes it's made up. And it's really hard to tell. It's really hard for the public, especially, to discern what is real, what is not, what's reputable, what's not, especially when you have, advertisements all over the place. They're increasing. I see them on LinkedIn. I'm getting targeted here and there. I even hear advertisements for audiobooks. It's really, there's this wave increasing of people talking about sex, but not within research and not the fundamental basics that we need to figure out in order to push the whole field forward.
So the sexual conversation, whether it's sex tech or femtech or whatever category, is non-evidence based, is more anecdotal and or non-scientific research based. There may be some anecdotal evidence and or ancestral evidence of how certain things might work, but it's not scientifically peer-reviewed, data-driven approaches that are coming. So what is it that you're doing different? Or are you taking the existing tech that's there and trying to peer review that? Or where's the intersection between what's available in the market for us today and what people with disabilities are needing?
Yeah. So what's kind of available in the market today, it's not peer reviewed because, and you're going to have to I know I'm not saying this exactly right, but the way that the FDA and supervises or categorizes certain things like wellness products, right? Like vitamins, you see certain supplements and they're not approved by the FDA. So the things that people are peddling that aren't evidence-based kind of fall in that category so they can get away with it. What I'm doing, I have a particular interest in the nervous system, which is why I'm tied into all this neuromodulation. That's my background, neural engineering, because I want to get down to the basics, right? So we don't even have the tools to evaluate if those products that they're selling are even effective because the tools don't exist. You have a survey before or after, but that's not giving us any insight into the biological mechanisms, right? We should be able to tell you, okay, when you get turned on, your brain releases this neurotransmitter and it travels here and it activates this. We should be able to draw like cell by cell, neurotransmitter by neurotransmitter, like nerve by nerve, what is happening in the body. And we just don't know yet. We know some for men. We know virtually nothing for women. But that's what we need to do because that's the knowledge that people have when they're getting pharmaceuticals approved, right? They can tell you, okay, this byproduct is getting processed by the kidney and then it gets excreted in your urine and this goes there and this goes there. Like we need to be able to do this with the nervous system before, in order to understand what we're changing with these devices. Otherwise, if nothing is changing in the body, it's placebo. And I'm including the brain in this, right? Brain, body, your brain is part of your body. So that's kind of my area. So I'm kind of device agnostic. If you say it works, great. I'm here to try and help you prove it.
Mm. So I know the placebo system does actually have a feasible, workable thing. Like we know about that. We know how the pharmaceuticals go with the drugs and everything, how the feasible system. I can understand, they could be selling a snake oil and could be doing anything. Yes, they don't have a research on it. But even being as a spinal cord injured person, I'm a C7 complete. So I know how the neural system works and to my sexual effect onto it and how the connection between us from the sexual content to an able-bodied person, he can easily do it. Because for them, the neural signals are sending to your sexual organs, and the organs are good to go. But in our situation, the system is the connection is broken. So how your device will be able to help us in it?
Yes.
Or to the female?
Yes, either really. So I can speak a little bit about one trial that's ongoing, and this is kind of like what I'm focusing on right now. It's part of the E-Stand trial, and what they're doing is they're implanting spinal cord stimulators in the epidural space, right? And they're targeting the nerves that control your lower limbs, right? So the whole point of this is to improve lower limb strength and functionality. But as another off-target benefit, some people were reporting sexual function benefits.
So
one woman.
Sorry to interrupt, but maybe just dumb it down a little bit for me, just so I understand what all the terms you just mentioned there.
Yes, of course. So basically, they have the like the pacemaker type device that's delivering electrical just electrical impulses, right? And what this is, what we think this does is it leads to functional recovery of the limbs because, when you have your spinal cord and then you have, different nerves are branching off. And so the ones that are branching off of your lower leg are kind of like lower at the like lower thoracic, upper lumbar level, right? So we move it there because we know those control the legs. And we, there's a few theories on like why this is working. That's not really my expertise, but it's just an off-target benefit.
So the device is basically an electrical simulator. It's got a battery. It's kind of like what they use in physiotherapy. They'll use like electrical signals, sort of. It's sending current into your nervous system, similar to what a pacemaker does for your heart. And I'm just trying to paraphrase what I understand.
Yes.
And one of the reasons you do that is to improve bowel or bladder function. And the side effects, or am I wrong here?
Oh, for this, most people aren't targeting bladder and bowel yet. They're targeting locomotion.
Oh, okay. So
So
helping
they're,
improvement of legs so they can
yes,
get some physical activation so they could stand and or walk.
exactly. Yes. We're trying to get them to recover enough strength where maybe they can start to stand on their own. Then they can be in a standing frame or like kind of assist the rehab process,
Got it.
basically.
Okay. And then so one of the side effects that was observed that they had improved bladder, bowel, and or sexual function in their sexual organs. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And so okay, go ahead now. Sorry. Now that I'm
No,
on the same
that's
page as you.
it.
Yeah.
No, that's really it. We're like, okay, so what we have to work with are some anecdotes. We have a couple people saying, I could feel my genitals in the tub. I'm like, okay, that happened one time. And like, but how do we turn that into what I've been calling a biomarker, right? That's just a story, an anecdote. And when we go to get devices approved by regulatory agencies, we can't just give them anecdotes. We have to give them numbers that we can do statistics on. And so how do we translate this experience, like these benefits that we're hearing reported, into some numbers, right? So we have those kind of surveys that I talked about. There's the International Index of Erectile Function and the Female Sexual Function Index. And we saw improvements on those surveys. And we give them to the participants like once a month. And yeah, we saw improvements, not across the board, but on average. And some individuals responded much better than others. Some even declined. But overall, we're getting positive anecdotes. So we're getting a lot of conflicting information. And I suspect it's because the surveys we're using just aren't very appropriate because they were designed for able-bodied people. Like, right, for example, one of them asks about pain. Okay, well, a lot of we're talking about below the level of injury. They mean pelvic pain, they mean genital pain. Well, if there's no sensation, then there's probably not going to be pain. And then if you report that, it messes with the score in an artificial way. So that's the data we have to work with. And what I'm trying to do is add on some imaging techniques that I think would give us some unbiased data. So now we have these people come in, they already have the stimulator in place. And again, they're doing this for locomotion. But when they come in, they'll do a testing session with me where we measure their blood flow to the genital area with stimulation on and off to see if there's a difference. Because I suspect that that's at least part of what's changing.
For the people, it's just having a function, is the system is working, or they're actually feeling orgasm or something about it too? Or it's just,
So
genitals, okay, yes, the equipment is working, but I don't know what is happening.
it's very different person to person, right? And as you might be able to imagine, it's hard to get them to open up. They're not here specifically for like sexual function. They were here trying to improve other things. And then here I am like, hey, would you like to participate in this? But from what I understand, the sensation of orgasm does feel different, right? And then people also have different priorities. So some participants, they're really focused on erection so they can perform. Some people are more focused on sensation so they can enjoy. Some people are focused on lubrication so it is less painful. And it's really hard to capture all these different reasons and different things they want to improve into one number and, speak for the whole community. And so that's, another challenge that we face also, because some of those different processes like lubrication and orgasm, it's a completely different part of the nervous system. And some people retain some aspects and some don't.
Are you a fan of the podcast?
We created a safe space for members of the community to discuss topics in accessibility, seek help, and exchange resources to make life better.
Join our inclusive community by emailing us at livingunbrokenorg@gmail.com.
You could be someone on the outside looking at someone with a disability who doesn't have these functions, and they're like, dude, you're in a wheelchair. Shouldn't you learn to walk first? Why are you talking about sexual function and all these things? So maybe help picture, paint a picture of why this is important for people to know about this, and why is your research important?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I just want to share, there's a lot of surveys out there. There's a lot of papers that have kind of surveyed the spinal cord injury population. And time again, sexual function is up there as a top priority. So the people have already spoken for themselves. But if I was to speak to the general public, most of us are here because somebody had sex, okay? And somebody gave birth to us. Most of us have had sex. It's an incredibly important part of intimate relationships. For a lot of people, it's, love and being married is one of their life goals. And sex is a huge part of that. Life satisfaction, well-being. A lot of people can also attest to how sexual dysfunction has impacted their relationship and caused a lot of stress. And so I think of it as kind of like bodily autonomy, right? This is your body, and it should be able to perform how you want it to. Sexual function is part of that. It's your right to have sex the way you want to.
At one point, I can understand. Most of the spinal cord injured patients are younger injured. So when I got injured, I was in my 30s. And I know a lot of people who are spinal cord injured, they're in their 20s or in their 30s. And yes, I can understand sexual content is not going to be related to a person when he's over 50 or 60 and he has a spinal cord injury. It doesn't really matter to him. But somebody who got injured while doing the skiing when he's in his 20s, now he doesn't have a girlfriend. So yes, that is one of the episodes we're going to be doing on about it. That yes, the sexual content is related to him because he's in his 20s. He has to live his life. Otherwise, I guess there's no other way around to it. And, being sex is the part of our body functions. Sleep, sex, death, eat. These are the 4 functions. Scrappy does it and we does it the same way. Hey, there's no difference in it, right? Except our mind ways. But why did you pick only the women? Even the men are more dominating, or in a culture where they think more about the sex than the woman?
Yeah. First, I want to push back a little bit. Older people, 50s, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they have sex too, right? Sexual transmitted infections run rampant in nursing homes, okay? So, sexual pleasure is important at every single stage of life. But yeah, especially for that younger generation that, hasn't had a chance to really even experience a lot yet, it can, make it so much more daunting to try to start having it as, once you have a spinal cord injury. So, but back to what you were saying, why females only? So that was more part of my thesis. I am studying men and women now. It just so happened that at the time we had more anecdotes from the women. But it's just because women have been more largely underserved. I do more than just spinal cord injury research. And outside of that, I do focus on women just because they have less available treatment options than able-bodied men. Cialis, Viagra, penis pump, penis implant. There's all these crazy tools for men, and for the women, the ones that exist, they're just really not great. They're not, they come with a lot of side effects. I don't want to say too much, but then with spinal cord injury, yes, I am focused on both, and the men especially, because 80% roughly of people with spinal cord injury are men. And I think that they have also been ignored for a long time because there are things like Viagra and Cialis, and people will be like, okay, here's this, now you have an erect penis, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a good sex life. So I think a lot more attention could be paid to the men as well.
So, you've been dealing with spinal cord injured patients. So, we have very common is atomic dysplasia pains. How?
Well, sorry, what is that?
So AD is the pain where our body is telling us something is wrong in our body. So if I'm sitting on a wrong object, if my bladder is full, if my bowel movement is not working properly, any kind of a function which is not working, or after the injury, a system is building an alarm system on our headaches. So we will get some kind of a headache start beginning, and it can be a devastating headache. Like, if you have a bladder blocked, it can lead to your high blood pressure is going to go very high. Your heartbeat is going to go very fast. So it's like a serious alarm thing. Like, I know some of the guys who have been admitted to the hospital. Do you remember when I had a nerve break blood vessel?
Yeah.
That was caused by that. So it's like basically in the able body, you get a headache. The headaches are generally a sign of a warning that something is wrong in your body. You got to look at it. But you can just take a Tylenol and it's over. But for us, if we don't fix the cause of it, we can have a heart attack. So how does that thing will not affect the sexual part of it?
It probably will. We're very aware because sexual function is a very common trigger for autonomic dysreflexia. And so thus far, because I'm not a physician and I'm kind of running these studies solo, we've been excluding people who are at higher risk. So we have a thoracic cutoff level right now. But it's something we're going to have to address in the future.
What's a thoracic cutoff?
So I'm sorry.
Sorry for being so ignorant of all this.
No. Thank you for helping me speak
Dumb it down, yeah.
No, just speak plainly. So when we recruit people for our trials, if their level of injury is too high, we won't accept them because we are so afraid of that risk of autonomic dysreflexia. So this will be fun. So in my actual study protocol, what we do is, we're testing sexual function. So you have to mimic sexual function. And so what we do is we bring them into the clinic and we have them watch a video with audio in kind of isolation, and we're monitoring their vitals remotely.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean monitoring their vitals remotely?
We're not in the room. We're just giving them privacy while they watch the erotic films.
And so monitoring with like a two-way mirror, or like what does that mean? Sorry.
No, they have like a blood pressure cuff, and it's just the information is just transmitted to our computers wirelessly.
Got it.
Or we'll do like screen mirroring, just, have the cables running from the room to our room, or just, screen mirroring the data collection.
Oh, okay, so you can see what they're seeing and you can see what they're feeling through their blood pressure monitor. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah, we can see the blood pressure, we can see the heart rate, we can see the video timing, and that sort of thing.
So you must have a lot of a database for the
What
people.
works, what doesn't
what
work.
exactly they want to pay.
Yeah.
It's a logistical nightmare, I gotta be honest.
So what happens? So where were you going with this? What happens when you do that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, so they're watching the video, and that's one of our biggest things. That's why we're monitoring blood pressure continuously, because there is a risk that just by virtue of watching the video and experiencing something we call psychogenic arousal, which just means that it's, thought in origin, they could get AD, and, their blood pressure could spike. And so we have some, mitigation treatments for that. But yeah, it's a big concern and something we had to, walk through with the IRB to make sure, like, yes, we know about this. We have a nurse on staff. It's never happened, actually. It has never happened. But yeah, safety is a big concern.
And what's IRB?
It is the Institutional Review Board. So before you can do any human subject experiments, you have to get it approved by most hospitals or universities will have an institutional review board, and it's just composed of like lay people, average people on the street, like you, or clergy, or your mom. And, because with doing research on humans, we need to make sure they're informed about what we're doing to them and that they agree. So the IRB helps us make sure that we are speaking plainly and that everybody understands the risks and benefits.
So how easy is it for you to raise funding? I'm assuming this is not a for-profit venture. You're researching, so you're raising money to do all this Tell me about your experience with that for this topic, especially.
Yeah. It's just grants, right? It's grants. In the US, like our primary funder of biomedical research is the NIH, the National Institute of Health. And they don't like to fund sexual function because I assume US politics, but what they like to see is sexual function tied to reproduction. And because I do not study reproduction at all, it's just a little harder. I think, there are other sexual function researchers I've communicated with in other countries, a lot in Canada, a lot in Europe, and they have a little bit easier of a time. Frankly, it's one of the major reasons we're not farther along than we should be. It's hard.
So how do you raise the funds then?
I've had success working with funds that are specifically for spinal cord injury because it is such a high priority. Time and time again, each survey, it's up there, but there's really few people doing the research. There's more doing bladder and bowel, for sure, but it's interesting that sex research is not very sexy. But yeah, I've had some success with spinal cord injury nonprofits. Like there's a state grant that funds research that was kind of put in place by the Unite to Fight Paralysis organization. There's some other ones, Wings for Life. Does SCI BC do any grants? Yeah, so those kinds of organizations are a better fit for what I'm trying to do. But I still submit to the other places.
I know, like we are so lucky. We have I don't know if you know the fellow Rick Hansen. He is the wheelchair guy in Emotion. He's still alive, so he's not that famous as Terry Fox. But but he's the guy. He's a paraplegic, and he rolled on a wheelchair across the world to raise awareness of spinal cord injury. And so he has done amazing work in our community. He has opened a center called iCord, which is kind of research basis just for spinal cord injury. That's all it does. And then we have, so yes, they are Dr. Ankit and Dr. Penning. They are a bunch of people. There's a lot of doctors. There's a lot of, and they do research on different functions of your body. And so yes, their funding is a little more easier than, as you say, than your side of it. Yeah, you have to look into it. It's called iCord, and maybe we can collaborate with them. And because that's what his goal is, just to research on spinal cord injury, how UTFP does to fight to remove the spinal cord injury, because this is something which is still non-touched by the big pharmas.
Yeah.
Is there a business model here that, it's always easier for people to raise money for businesses, I find, especially with med tech. If we can find a way to take it away from sex tech to med tech, it may be easier to raise funding.
Oh, I think so, definitely. Especially because, the things I'm pitching, the things that would come naturally to me to try and bring to market would probably target bladder or bowel too. And so that's nice because you can spin your story to your different audience. Like you're talking to your VCs or you're talking to, government, small business. You can tailor the story that way. I mean, but the business side is very different. I remember trying to pitch an idea to somebody about tibial nerve stimulation. And they were like, well, where are you going to get the money? How much are you going to charge them? Da, da, da. And I was like, I want it to be free. And they're like, that's not how it works. So I'm not really the person to be making those business decisions. But once somebody wants to team up with me, I'm here for it.
And so what would that look like? Yeah, if you could imagine that.
So we're thinking some sort of device that we're going to create to treat sexual dysfunction and spinal cord injury. There's a group out there trying to do it right now, actually. I think their name is Intimistim.
So can you say that?
Intimistim. So I think, I think it's supposed to be intimate or intimacy. and then stim. But the first thing it's going to take is just like raising a lot of money. And then
To do what?
you'll have to,
What would the money do?
you'd have to build a device, make it pretty, some sort of like prototype, and you just have to start testing it in people. And the main reason I don't even really want to go there yet is because the tests that they're going to use to evaluate efficacy, I don't think are very good. So I'd prefer to create those tests first. We call them clinical outcome measures. So right now, the clinical outcome measures are, more acronyms, what we call patient-reported outcomes. You're taking a survey, right? It's subjective data. I want to make a device and optimize it based on objective data. And so those just don't exist yet. So because if we create a device and then we, test it in men, and then we give them the survey before and after, we're not going to get good results on the surveys, even if the patients love it. Even if they love it, doesn't matter. We won't get it approved. We won't get it covered by insurance. It's just the weird, sad way the game rolls.
Yeah, I always, both Amit and I are entrepreneurs. We run our businesses, and this is something we do to give back. We would have never been talking about spinal cord injury and doing this had Amit not gone through his injury, right? Had he not ever experienced it. And, so when we have these conversations with our guests, we always have the entrepreneurial hat on. And so you have the research hat on, we're like, where's the business here? We're always hunting. We're the opportunistics in the room.
Show me the money.
Yeah, and not because we're greedy, although money is nice. It's because of who we are. We're wired as entrepreneurs, we're wired in that way. And so when we see a problem, we're like, okay, well, what's the opportunity? People see climate change, they think, doom and gloom, and others see, well, I'm going to start a carbon capture or, carbon, credits company, whatever. There could be lots of opportunity. Disability, there's 1 billion people with disabilities in the world, right? It's the world's largest minority group. And it exists in every single culture, every continent, every ethnicity, every region, however you want to segment people, you'll find people with disabilities in that group. So I think, there's definitely opportunity here that even if you don't start with the end product on day one, maybe there's a pre-product,
Oh yeah, here's a freebie. I just went to a conference where these people were designing different shaped like sex toys. And I was like, well, first of all, masturbation is very underrated. That's something that like people don't talk about, which is fine, but I consider that sexual function, and maybe enough to like keep you satisfied in the short term. But these sex toys, they're not very ergonomic for people with spinal cord injuries with like limited hand function. And so I talked with them and I was like, oh, would you be interested in like designing something for like this disabled population? And she gave me her card. So there's that. But there's a lot of little things like that. And I wish I had 10 lives to pursue them all.
No, definitely. In BC, we educate. In Vancouver, we have even a nonprofit organization, which is actually run by the sex workers who are well trained to because every spinal cord injured person have a different style of functions and what they can do and what they cannot do. So there is actually an organization who runs with the sex workers who are being trained. Part of it is either they've been past nurses or they've been trained by the nurses how. So when they go into to pleasure that person, they are well trained to do the job. But yes, definitely, it's just between the person and itself and the sex worker on it. But yes, that function, that organization do exist on it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunities around the last mile for people with disabilities. So just like for example, my phone, anything that exists for people. Able-bodied people needs that last mile connection to somebody who doesn't have hand function or leg locomotion or any other, physical ability, that they need that device modified a little bit. And we interviewed a guest recently who he creates those kind of last miles. So I know Amit was part of the team,
Xbox.
like Microsoft Xbox controller that came up with the controller because he used to play a lot of video games pre-accident, and then he couldn't. And then you went through that. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so the Xbox a few years back now, almost, I guess 2019, 2018, that's where Xbox, because now the big 500 companies are tapping into the market, which they never tapped in, which is our disability people. So we built an accessibility remote. So we used to go there, and different people, different functions of disability, they were planning to how we can design the remote and have an accessibility on it. So the idea is, what if you try to figure out in a way that can be functional and be something which can make money? Might be interested to be, because you have to understand, there are companies right now, and you can see right now the Apple, just with their latest new AirPods, they are trying to function to how people cannot listen properly, the people who have an deaf community on it. And Meta is stepping into the, what do you call it, the health, what is it?
I think they've got the or glasses, I guess. Meta's got the glasses, right? So with people who cannot hold their phone to take a photo, they can, I guess, I don't know, instruct it with their eyes or something. I don't know, or just talk into it, I think, is with the glasses, right?
The answer is because, say, 70% of the world internet, or to 80 now, is used by porn industry. Just the section. That's the real survey. 80% to 70%.
I'm not in that 80%. I want to make sure that's clarified. Yeah, 80% of my data is like YouTube videos for kids.
Oh, let's not go there. So, just to give you Elizabeth, he's my younger brother, so I can always kick him off.
Good to know.
So, I feel, I don't know, maybe you're approaching the wrong, wrong team. Maybe the team which is just want to produce sex and sell sex and, put it on 70, because, you have to see it. The industry is huge. It's a massive industry where they're making so much money. And it's just I've noticed, I know it's off the top, but after COVID, that industry has boomed. That industry has boomed on it.
I've thought about it. People have been like, you should ask Pornhub if they'll fund your research.
Canadian company, by the way. We should say that. Just want to plug it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Good for them. Okay. So for my research, I have a bunch of different people in, but they have different video preferences. And so I want to offer them. So I've also thought about working with them to curate a specific selection of videos that is more appropriate for my research.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about diversity issues in the porn industry. I don't think we have to. We just know they're there. So I just don't know. I think I am worried, especially because I am in the United States, what that would do for a certain other people's perception of my research. So I haven't, I'm new, right? I'm 2 years out of my PhD. This is a very interesting idea. But I worry about that.
Well, no, I can understand. You are a part of the country which is changing very quickly now, in a different way. So, but I feel as entrepreneurs, I feel, my mind is right now grinding right now in my head. How can I make money off that product? Because that's a pretty health tech product for me. To thinking about it, right? And maybe, once we start thinking about it, you might come out, maybe in an Apple iPhone app, because now Apple has also allowed, and the Twitter has also allowed the porn industry to go on it, right? So maybe they could be, because I think that the time is changing. So maybe something like that.
But I guess I get her point. I think there's a risk that she could jeopardize her existing academic funding that may be available to us because of that. And then there's a bird in hand versus the two in the bush. No pun intended there, but just the bird that she has, the funding that she has could be jeopardized because of other potential like who else is sponsoring this study? And then it's like, well, there's Pornhub, and there's like, sorry, we're out.
Exactly. Like if I have to put a Pornhub logo and acknowledge and put them in all my acknowledgments, and then the NIH, who is funded by Congress, it's like, you want us to give money to this Pornhub person? Like, no. And so maybe, if I ever become tenured faculty one day, we can have another conversation about that. But
what is the most surprising or weirdest moment you ever had while doing this sexual research you're doing?
So maybe not surprising, but I would say like the most gratifying moment I had was I've taken a lot of care to design my study so it is professional, comfortable, safe, accommodating, all of those things. And so one of the things I did, like I mentioned, I went out and I like specifically looked for videos that were produced ethically, right? So the actors in the erotic films were paid. They were consenting couples. It was filmed by an award-winning producer. And, I put in a lot more work than I think your average person would. But then I got feedback from one of the participants, like, that was really good, like, video, like, thank you. Which was validating for me because it shows that, like, first of all, I won't have to search for the videos again. Like, I did put in the work and now I have them. But I think it just goes to show you that, like, that level of attention to detail is always going to pay off. It's also what's going to make participants willing to come back and return and participate in your study because, besides funding, that's the other major challenge is recruitment, right? I would love it if I could, and I still want to propose this, but I want to get like some sort of like mobile health unit. And if I could drive to everybody else's houses and then collect the data, I would do that because, like, how are you expecting this disabled population to travel to you? Like, right? Like that, and that's contributing to our disparities in spinal cord injury trials, which contributes to these bad takes, I would say, because we're not studying the entire population. We're studying the privileged people who are able to come to our clinic. So I want to keep thinking about this, designing the most inclusive ways. And so when, somebody came back and gave me that feedback, it was like very gratifying. And I think a sign that I'm like on the right path.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think there's definitely, having lived close to someone with a disability for so long, I know, and especially being his brother, you can talk things that other people cannot sometimes, and not always a good thing, but in general, you at least yourself, each other a little bit more intimately. And I know this is important, right? What you're doing, and I know how gratifying it can feel because I feel I've had my own versions of your experiences in observing. One of Amit's friends, also a much younger person, was he got disabled or injured many years ago and recently had a baby. And and I think he's
he just recently got married and have a baby. And in my married life, I've been married for 21 years, so he's just screwed now. So
so of all the married anecdotal jokes, but I think it's fulfilling. The life is a fulfilling life for him, and more people should be able to experience that. So what you're doing is it's God's work. So hopefully that leads to more funding from those type of organizations as well, right?
Yeah, I think the message really resonates, right? Like by virtue of me being here, I've been supported by a lot of other advisors who their primary interest is not sexual function, it's bladder or spinal cord injury, but walking. and they see me and they're like, hey, come join my lab, work with me. What you're doing is important. And so just like virtue of being able to study what I study, I think the tides are shifting. And even if we take a step back in some countries, other countries will continue to move forward. And so I'm optimistic as a whole. I choose to be optimistic.
Elizabeth, we always ask our guests a couple of limited questions here. If you get a chance to, or choose to become an animal, don't say the dog because you already have the dog. So,
Okay, sure.
so which animal are you going to choose it?
And why?
Okay. I would like to be a raven.
A raven?
Yeah. So I could fly. That's super cool, right? They're super pretty. But also they're part of the corvid animal. And so they're very intelligent and they'll like make friends with humans and they kind of like, they'll bring you, I don't know. So they seem like they have a rich life and they get to fly.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't it a raven is like a crow thing?
It's much bigger than a crow, and it's
But
different, smarter.
I never seen him hanging around at somebody's house. People are trying to get rid of him.
Ravens?
Definitely crows. Yeah. But ravens are like bigger. I think they can be in some of the same areas. But yeah, when you see one up close next to a crow, like you will see the difference. But when they're like way up there, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. That's a cool animal. I mean, it's all black, right? I think it's still similar to, it's shinier, I think, than a crow, though.
Yeah. It's like, so it got that purple kind of shimmer on it.
Yeah.
And they're call. They're called. They're not bark. I don't know. It's different.
Yeah, that's a cool animal. I like that.
Yeah, I would never thought about that one.
Someone chose a falcon, peregrine falcon.
Ooh, yeah, they're fast.
That was a good one. Yeah, it's the fastest animal on Earth. Yeah, and if you could be the leader of your country, what would you do?
A better job. And like one thing. I have to pick one
You
thing.
choose. Feel free to.
Well,
go ahead.
They have that, what do you call it, the first 100 days.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many problems, right? Especially in my country. But I'm a big believer in, the younger generations because whatever we mess up, it's up to them to fix it. And so I would probably work on, I would cancel student debt, kind of invest more into public education, maybe free college. I would go that route.
Yeah.
And so you would not funding for yourself for research?
I mean, I would be president. I'd be too busy.
Yeah. He's smart. Yeah.
No. And, if you want to give an advice, because I know you have done PhD, which is a big title to be on it, right? What will you tell to your younger self, Elizabeth? Get in or get out? Don't worry about it.
Oh, get in, do it, but just like, you're gonna make mistakes, okay? But frankly, that's how you learn and that's how you know you're learning. So when you feel those feelings of getting something wrong or having a bunch of edits on your paper, it's so red, it looks like you might as well have like started over. You should start over because, that's part of the process. Nothing worth having is easy. It's just, stick in there. It's worth it.
Yeah, that's amazing advice, actually, for someone so young and still so mature.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Elizabeth. I think we'd love to do this again a little bit more, maybe focused on the science a little bit. And I think it's great what you're doing. It's really important. It's never going to impact me. I hope not. But it's really important that it impacts the people it's supposed to impact and them feeling better and happier will impact all of us, right?
Yeah, yes, definitely. And what we learn along the way, I'm sure will kind of inform other different branches of sex research.
And I would say definitely trying to reach through the I cord, and our system is amazing what they're doing, and they raise a lot of funds, and the government support them because they are now a big research organization itself. So definitely you will find someone. I know only a couple of guys. Dr. Andre, he's quite famous guy, and he's coming on our podcast. Gonna be soon. He's on holiday right now. So Dr. Andre Kosakos or something like that. But no, thank you so much for joining us, and it will be very amazing to hear what you have done it, and definitely for me, I know from our brother, but I'm looking forward to that device, something like that, which can improve a lot of things for us. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support. I had a really great time talking to you both, and I would also maybe we could also chat about these little different, your entrepreneurial take on all these kind of random upcoming devices. I think that would be a really fun discussion too.
Yeah, if there's a conference or anything like that you recommend for us to attend that we can maybe co-attend and get to know a little bit more, energy. I think there was one that you talked about on your post. Are you going to that one at the end of April there?
I'm going to some in the beginning, the med tech ones, but the neuro ones later.
Okay.
I'm out of town, but I can email you the information. And
Yeah,
we can chat.
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll put them on the notes for the episode as well. So if someone else is interested in that as well, they can attend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Take care. Thank you for listening.
Please leave a review and follow our socials.
For more information, go to the show notes of this episode.
We'll see you soon on the next episode of the Living Unbroken podcast.